G'day fellas, the last STEM in in the core 2 is Stem33 part 2, and we're looking at the assessment of skill and performance, and in particular looking at the last two sub-points of this area. We're looking at firstly the validity and reliability of tests and personal versus prescribed judging criteria. So firstly looking at the validity and reliability of tests. What does validity mean? And it simply means, does a test measure what it is meant to measure? So for a test to be called valid, it must measure what it's supposed to measure. So if we wanted to measure someone's, and we've got the example here, someone's aerobic endurance, it would not be valid to base our judgment on their aerobic endurance on their 40-metre sprint test, because clearly that doesn't test their aerobic endurance. So that would be an invalid test. A valid test for that would be something like the 12-minute run or the beep test, so something that actually tests their aerobic endurance. So again, just repeating, for a test to be valid, it must measure what it is designed to measure, or what we're hoping to measure. And here's an example of the vertical jump test. That's a valid test for leg power, which is relevant to the sport of basketball. Now, reliability is the ability of the test to actually produce the same results on a consistent basis. So we're saying, okay, yes, a test may be valid, but if it's not reliable, it's no good. So that would therefore make it invalid. So to be reliable, we have to try and use the same procedure, the same equipment, hopefully do the test at the same time of day, have the same person recording the test, and things like that. So just consistency. So to be reliable, a test has to be consistently repeated and achieving similar sort of results. So therefore we can compare certain results, like an individual's results from one week to another week. We can also compare the results of various individuals with a fair degree of accuracy. Here's just some examples. You know, if we compared someone's 40-metre sprint results, someone did a test on the grass, someone did a test on sand, and another bloke did a test on a running track, then that would not be reliable, because it's completely different surfaces. Just noting here that a test can be reliable but invalid. So we're saying the test, you can run the test perfectly, you can run your 40-metre sprint, and that can be reliable because you're running it under the same conditions on the same track with the same bloke timing. But if you're using that 40-metre sprint test to assess a person's aerobic endurance, then that's invalid because it's not measuring aerobic endurance at all. Just remember, a test cannot be valid if it's not reliable. So if we're testing a person's aerobic endurance, but we're comparing people's results under a number of different conditions, then that would not be considered valid because it wasn't reliable. Okay. Moving on to the last section, personal versus prescribed judging criteria. So this is just saying, how do people judge things? It's very similar to subjective and objective observation. If it's personal judging criteria, it's just purely what the judge himself thinks as a result of his own personal opinion. So again, very subjective. You can make the personal criteria a little bit more credible with rating scales or checklists, but that again may only be a personal thing. So the personal judging criteria is what the personal opinion of that person is, and so therefore it's subjective. So we try and stay away from subjective judging. We want to make things as objective as possible. Just an example here, this surfer doing an air, one person may think that's a fantastic skill, another person might not be so flattered, so impressed by it, and they may be more concentrating on what's the person doing on the wave. They're doing some cutbacks, re-entries, floaters, whatever else, that terminology is that I just Googled to find out about surfing. So that would be an example of personal judging criteria. Prescribed is where you actually have a set checklist which is laid down by the governing body of the sport. Gymnastics is a great example of this, where yes, judges are watching it, but it's not purely the judge's personal opinion, it's the judge's personal opinion based on a prescribed checklist. And there may be an element of subjectivity there, but it's trying to make it as objective as possible. And that's also the reason why they have a number of different judges. So they discard the lowest score and the highest score and take the middle scores to try and achieve consistency and as much objectivity as possible. So the prescribed judging criteria is given to people by a governing body So gymnastics does it, diving does it, ice skating does it, surfing does it. I'm sure there's heaps of other sports you can think of that I can't right now that do it. Here's an example of a gymnastics scoring sheet. So that you can see there different things and different sort of weightings that would be given. So that's an example of prescribed judging criteria. And that is the end of your core 2 and the end of this STEM. Thanks, fellas.